switch the view if you're seeing. Do you see notes for the slides, or do you just see a full screen slide at the moment?
I got full screen.
Hey, perfect. Okay. Well, thanks again, Paul. Again, everybody, I appreciate the patience here today. What we wanted to talk about is Safeguard Enterprise 6.1, and the kind of the premise of the presentation for today is encryption without compromise. Okay. The presentation is divided into three main parts. So we're going to do an overview of the Sophos data protection strategy. So just kind of recommendations we're seeing and presenting based on kind of the industry as a whole today. The next piece is Safeguard Enterprise 6.1, what's new, and kind of a general product overview, and then we'll talk about some options within that toward the end of the presentation. Okay. So the agenda for today, okay, where is information, general rules and regulation that we're seeing in the industry. We're going to illustrate some examples of ignoring the risks and the potential consequences. A lot of this has made the news even more recently, so a lot of the material we're presenting today was prepared a few months ago, and even in the interim, there have been some big news and front headline kind of newsworthy items specifically around data loss. We'll take take a look at Safeguard Enterprise 6.1 general product overview, and then a summary of what we've covered today. Okay, so over the last decade or so, there's been a big shift in how people tend to work and also how they access corporate data and corporate resources, right? And I think that goes without saying. So sensitive corporate and customer data is moving outside of kind of the relative safely or the traditional corporate security perimeter. Okay, you may have heard the term before, the dissolving perimeter. Okay, so what we're referring to there is that computers on site and within the corporate firewall. Okay, users today want access to information in an increasing number of ways, and you may consider that to be an infinite number of ways. So, for example, accessing files on personal computers at home, on personally owned tablets and mobile devices, or just generally sharing data through public cloud storage providers like Dropbox, Box.net, that sort of thing. So basically, sensitive data can be found everywhere today. Having data move to so many pieces and devices outside of the direct control of the organization poses many challenges as a result. Just some facts and figures to put things in perspective. I wanted to share a few interesting stats that are relevant to data protection. It's interesting to note that a large majority of companies, about 86%, have had a laptop lost or stolen at some point in the recent past. Okay, the cost of the hardware when losing a laptop is of course not particularly significant. You know, obviously we'd like to avoid that, but it's the data itself on that device that contains or holds the real value. Okay, the average loss or the average value of every lost record is typically about $100 per record or slightly higher. Okay, which means that per average laptop loss, that's about $50,000 worth of value to an organization. So as you can see, that the hardware itself at that point is relatively insignificant. Okay, and those numbers can ramp quite a bit higher than that easily, depending on what those laptops contain as well. Another fact that certainly made me raise my eyebrows when I first saw it is that over 8,000 laptops are being left behind in U.S. airports every week, and that most of these are never reclaimed. Okay, it's really an astonishing number when you consider there really aren't that many airports in general. Okay, so the research behind this was done by the Poneman Institute, was done quite a few years ago now, back in 2008, so that number is likely higher today. Also, over 80% of medium-sized companies, they consider medium-sized to be 100 to 1,000 users, have no encryption. Okay, so that leaves about 4/5 of all vulnerable data associated with data breaches or lost hardware just open. And again, it makes this company size, really a target segment, especially for Safeguard Enterprise, where Sophos considers itself, kind of that smaller to mid-market company focus, and then specific areas that we're looking at larger enterprises as well. Okay, so the software is really designed for that particular market segment. All right, now, as I'm sure most of you are aware, or maybe partially aware, the best solution to solving these challenges is to just encrypt devices and data across the board. Okay, more challenges with data being everywhere. Having data move to so many places and devices outside direct control of the organization creates a lot of challenges. Okay, it's become increasingly hard and time-consuming to maintain adequate and solid corporate security policies. So if you try to create kind of a traditional rigid policy, in a lot of cases it's hard to have a policy that can apply to all of these different areas. Excuse me. It's also difficult to make sure that all intellectual property stays safe. IP can easily change places and location, And IP is also many times the key asset of a company. It's usually critical that it's 100% protected. If a laptop, smartphone, or USB hard disk is lost or stolen, it's really difficult to limit or even assess damages. If you don't know what's on there, you may have some idea, but in many cases, before they assess fines or they determine what fines are going to be, if you can prove what records run that device or if the device was encrypted, you could completely alleviate that exposure. Same thing with decommissioning devices or when an employee leaves a company. Okay, so controlling the access that they have or taking that access away is one of those things that you want to focus on. And finally, the challenge of staying compliant. So compliance means to follow legal obligations and government directives that specify how certain data should be protected. Okay, this is becoming proportionally harder to do the higher the number of places that users take sensitive or confidential data. And all of these things, and more of course, must be addressed in one way or another while at the same time ensuring that these users remain productive. So you don't want to become an obstacle or a block to those users being able to conduct their daily business and fulfilling their job roles. Okay, so let's take a closer look at compliance, which, as I mentioned, is a really important part and concern for most businesses today. And that's restricted to any businesses that store sensitive data, but thinking about it, that really applies across the board. So compliance, rules and regulations. Let's take a closer look at compliance. Okay, so this is an important concern for any business that stores any sensitive data. Compliance means to adhere to the rule set laid down to govern how data must be stored and protected. Some are global, like in addition to global regulations, each individual country, region, or industry also has their own set of guidelines that must be followed. If regulated data is not protected and it's lost or there is some sort of security breach, the results can be devastating. For example, fines, loss of customer confidence, goodwill, the need to disclose the breach, for example. I'm sure everyone is aware of the issue that Target had recently. Okay, a few examples of this. HIPAA and high tech designed to protect patient privacy. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. PCI DSS, specifically around the payment card industry, data security standards, and protecting credit card information, which we'll also talk about in more detail. FERPA, which is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, is specifically designed for students' privacy. Okay, FISMA is the Federal Information Security Management Act of 2002. Okay, specifically designed around federal agencies and corporations that touch sensitive federal data. And there are several other examples like GLBA, Gramm-Leach, Sarbanes-Oxley, PIP-EDA. So the list goes on. A lot of these have overlapping requirements, but again, each designed specifically for a particular industry or a particular type of data. Some examples of breaches and losses. Okay, so listed breaches on the right, records that these things have contained in the past when they have happened. Okay, and fines that have been assessed if they're known. In some cases, they haven't been assessed yet. Okay, there are a few websites that provide examples of this, like privacyrights.org, crn.com, Health and Human Services website, that sort of thing. So the list kind of continues on in this case. Another example here where a dermatology practice settled a potential HIPAA violation. Okay, they basically settled for $150,000. In this case, a stolen unencrypted thumb drive contained the electronic protected health information of approximately 2,200 patients. Okay, and they have a statement down below from the organization in question. Next piece here. Looks like the layout's a little funky here. I apologize for that. But again, trying to balance productivity versus security. So, are we providing the security, or do you have the security in place that you need to remain compliant and remain protected while also being able to provide the services and let people continue on in their normal job path? Okay. So again, being able to simplify these things in the case where you don't have to prove what's on these devices if you can prove they're encrypted. Encryption is generally the best solution, but if not done correctly, can be prohibitive or slow users down. It can slow boot time and annoy users. In some cases, it may not necessarily work on the latest hardware or work across the board on all the hardware that you have in place. It can cause issues with machines, and it can also limit collaboration and distribution options depending on how permissions are assigned. Okay. All right, so each of these will inevitably draw on the resources that IT have in the department too. Okay, so these are things that we want to make sure we address. So encryption without compromise. Okay, so the goal for the Sophos product line is really to help overstretched IT teams protect corporate and customer data by encrypting it without getting in the way of end users. Okay, really an important statement there. We want to make sure that we're encrypting data wherever it resides. Okay, so we provide products for Windows. We're on parity with Mac for volume-based encryption, file removable media, network drives, that sort of thing. So we're looking at the two platforms, being able to apply policy equally across the two. Okay, at the same time, we want to keep it simple by minimizing the work needed by IT to deploy. Okay, so that brings me to the cornerstone of our new data protection strategy, which is to deliver the best of both worlds, security plus performance. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the Safeguard Enterprise product overview. So this nifty wheel we've got floating across the screen here kind of breaks down what we're able to do within the Safeguard Enterprise encryption suite. Okay, we really approach this as encryption everywhere. So they've got it broken down. There's kind of two fundamental things or functions that we're providing here. Disk encryption, which is your volume-based encryption for local hard disks, and then file encryption, which covers a wider range. We're looking at things like removable media, network shares and file shares, and cloud storage. Okay. Let's start by looking at the different components of Safeguard Enterprise within the Safeguard Management Center. Okay, so this is kind of the central nervous system or management center here that really puts you in the driver's seat, keeping the dashboard in front of you. You get instant access to every aspect of your data protection. You can see every policy, every key, every user, every machine, and statistics around those, which not only gives you the full control you want, but it also provides full compliance that you can report and prove in the case that data or any device go missing, or in the case that you need to provide audit information. As a security officer, you can have a predefined or a custom role. Okay, this is set up through role-based administration and service accounts for administrators. And the Management Center helps you control and manage all sides of your encryption, saving you time and effort. So we've got this centralized management offering here. Okay, Management Center is also where you can roll out and deploy encryption. Now, specifically around Safeguard device encryption, if laptops or desktop PCs are stolen or lost, data loss and compliance problems are quickly behind. So Sophos provides full disk encryption that protects your confidential data without slowing your users down. Okay, so that's the Safeguard device encryption offering. This protects all data on the machine through encrypting the whole disk using Sophos proprietary technology. All right, this technology is certified and it's proven by some of the most demanding bodies in the world, including FIPS, CCEAL4, VSNFD, and other certifications like those. It also gives you solid defense against theft or accidental loss, and it lets you manage or recover data from one central console. Okay, device encryption uses a fast encryption algorithm, AES-256, perfect for quickly protecting new computers. And for even better performance, we make use of processor acceleration in Intel's i5 and i7 family of processors. Also included with the Safeguard disk encryption license is what we call native device encryption. Okay, native device encryption is a module that lets you manage clients encrypted with BitLocker, File Vault 2, okay, including Windows 8.1 and Mac OS X Mavericks. It also gives you the option of managing self-encrypting hard drives or Opal drives. Okay. To further ease the workload for IT teams when users lose their passwords, we know that unfortunately that does happen. We've built in easy password recovery options through challenge response and local self-help, which means your employees don't necessarily need to call your help desk if they forget their password or, unfortunately, if their yellow sticky note falls off their laptop. Okay. And finally, making life as easy as possible for users is really important, which is why we make logging into an encrypted computer the exact same experience as it is logging onto a normal Windows workstation through a single sign-on experience. So in addition to that, this native device encryption, again, being able to manage BitLocker and File Vault 2, okay, this is really a major strategy for us moving forward. The most recent versions of Windows and OS X come with encryption, okay, just included with the license for those. That's BitLocker for Windows and File Vault 2 for Mac. And this native device encryption module lets you manage encrypted clients that have those engines available there. There's several benefits to that. We're seeing better performance, better stability, a wider range of hardware can easily be supported. And then the Safeguard product is letting you apply a consistent policy across those platforms and still have the same benefits of central key management, drive recovery, and that sort of thing centrally. So because of that, you know, Microsoft and Apple both spend a large amount of resources on hardware compatibility testing every year, so you basically inherit those benefits. Okay, it means you can update earlier, you can support a wider range of hardware, and again, you'll get those performance benefits. Together with inheriting any new certifications, the encryption engines may receive as well, so there's additional benefit there. Safeguard Data Exchange is an additional module. So this is specifically for protecting data on removable devices. So, when users want to access information on a wide variety of devices, okay, it means that sensitive data can be found everywhere. So traditional full disk encryption, which can protect laptops and computers at rest, we strongly recommend complementing this with file encryption. Okay, that really, you won't have complete protection until you've got encryption in other areas besides just the local hard drives. Okay, so Safeguard Enterprise contains great functions for encrypting files stored outside of the main hard disk. So we're looking at things like removable media. That could be your flash drives or your smartphones, basically any portable storage. Network file shares, okay, and that could be a Windows file share, it could be another platform all supported, or third-party cloud storage. Okay, so we'll start out here by looking at file encryption on removable devices. The module Safeguard Data Exchange encrypts files on, like I mentioned, USB sticks, removable hard drives, memory cards, CDs, DVDs, smartphones. Okay, it lets users share data securely. You can log that data sharing, specifically by file. Okay, and they can potentially share things with other team members, or if you allow it by policy, sharing data outside of the organization. Okay, we provide two-way access through a utility called Safeguard Portable that's part of the license for this. It's automatically copied to the protected media and lets you access encrypted files on a machine that don't have the Safeguard client installed. Okay, nice thing about this is you can use generic USB sticks, which have gotten very inexpensive. They give them away at trade shows. You can buy them for $5 at the grocery store. And it means that you can encrypt any USB storage as opposed to using those traditional hardware encrypted drives like iron keys and that sort of thing. So one of the main features or benefits to using Safeguard Enterprise is you can easily manage and control your clients, devices, and access to sensitive data in the management center. So data exchange, kind of follows the same mentality, and it gives you visibility into the status of all devices, and lets you set policy by users to ensure that data stored on removable media is encrypted. Okay, so that at that point, if the removable media gets lost, misplaced, or stolen, you can easily and quickly verify which files were on the device, whether they encrypted, and which key was used. Next, we're going to talk about Safeguard encryption for file shares. So again, this is using that file and folder encryption. Okay, so just an example of a typical situation. Companies often store the majority of their important data on file servers because it's centrally administered, centrally backed up, centrally accessible, and collaborative. Okay, IT normally can access all corporate data so they can manage files, folders, and basically keep things running. Now, many times, a lot of incredibly sensitive data is stored on corporate networks, so salary data, employee information, financial data, business plans, intellectual property, etc. So are you certain that your network administration team doesn't read this information? Well, probably not. So in most cases, system administrators would have access directly to those files, but they can't be guaranteed that you're taking that access away. Okay. So for example, what would happen if employees found out that they were being made redundant, or you're planning to outsource IT or something like that? Okay. Now, what Safeguard encryption for file shares lets you do is solve that problem. Okay. It's adding another layer of access protection to files and folders in the network. Okay, and that goes beyond standard folder permissions administered by IT. It means that you can guarantee that only the right people, okay, meaning staff or teams with the right keys on their system, can access those files without ever having to be aware that they were encrypted in the first place. So it doesn't disrupt that normal workflow or that normal way that they use those machines. Okay. It also helps companies to easily divide duties hierarchically for additional control and accountability between network administration and network security, providing peace of mind for everyone. Okay. So IT admins can continue to manage, back up, and keep the network running as before, but it lets security officers manage keys and policies without having access to any files. Okay, so it's really protection across the board. And we've got a couple examples in this next slide of how that applies. Okay, kind of a couple of use cases here. And the next piece we're going to take a look at here is Safeguard encryption for cloud storage. Okay, so today more people than ever collaborate, store, and share files using cloud storage such as Dropbox. Like I mentioned earlier, in 2014, it's expected that subscribers to cloud storage services will total more than 700 million users. Okay, one of the top benefits of using cloud storage is the convenient access to files and data from any location, any device, any browser at any time. Okay, and it can be a great tool to improve productivity. Conversely, the disadvantage of using cloud storage for business data is that it's tricky to adhere to company security policies and to keep sensitive data protected. You don't know where that data is going. You don't know who's accessing it. And generally, just using those services, you have no security built around it. Okay, so some companies are putting security policies in place to regulate business usage of cloud storage, but many others don't. And many may not even know, who's storing confidential, personal, or sensitive data in the cloud. Okay, we often run into a lot of organizations that are either trying to prevent access to this, which is a difficult thing to do. You can't really limit it for mobile devices easily, especially if employees own them. Okay, kind of the more progressive approach is to try to guide that usage. So you can say that, we're going to support a Dropbox environment, we're providing storage that we've purchased for it, and we're going to allow you these tools to access that storage. Okay, so what Safeguard Encryption for Cloud Storage module lets you do is define policies to automatically encrypt files before they're uploaded to the cloud. Okay, all cloud storage providers, or most of them, take security very seriously. All right, and they have some sort of encryption technology in place already, but using Safeguard to layer on top of that guarantees that those organizations have no choice about being able to release your data under any circumstances. Okay, so Safeguard auto-detects a wide range of cloud storage providers by default, so that includes Dropbox, Google Drive, Ignite, Microsoft OneDrive, was previously SkyDrive, and several others, and then others can be added manually as well. It can also be used for private and hybrid cloud solutions. Okay, the additional encryption provided by Safeguard Encryption for Cloud Storage means that in many cases, any security concerns a company may have around cloud storage can be completely eliminated. Okay, so for example, if Dropbox gets subpoenaed, if you've encrypted your data before it's uploaded to Dropbox, they have no control over whether they can actually release the content of those files. Okay, it also allows users to use the cloud as much as they want, wherever they want, okay, because we're providing tools basically on any platform that allow them access to those encrypted files. Okay. In addition to that, there are auditable records that can be used or produced through the Management Center to prove that any documents written to destinations, again, removable media or cloud storage, were encrypted, which keys were used, and when that happened, okay? So again, it gives us maximum portability by being able to access those files from anywhere. And complementary to this is something called Sophos Mobile Encryption. This is a mobile application that we have for iOS and Android that give us access to encrypted files. So if your users are using Dropbox or Ignite, you can kind of see it on the lower left there, the different platforms that are supported. This is a utility that's going to give you access to those encrypted files through this utility and entering a correct passphrase. And again, it's a free application you can use in conjunction with the Sophos for Cloud Storage. Okay, so that brings us back to our new data protection strategy, which is to deliver the best of both worlds, security plus performance. Okay. First, let's cover performance. So recent versions of both Windows and Mac already have disk encryption built in, BitLocker, Windows, and FileVault 2 on Mac, as we mentioned earlier. Okay, so we're making sure that encryption is fast, reliable, and seamless by leveraging these built-in or native encryption technology. Okay, it dramatically improves performance compared to any proprietary third-party encryption technology. Their built-in encryption can sit at a lower layer and integrates tighter in the operating system. It means the machine can boot faster, it can run faster, and the encryption is even more transparent to the end user. So Safeguard Enterprise, being able to manage this, comes with functions that manage clients that are encrypted with both. Okay, so we can apply policies across the board again, or on top of our own proprietary encryption, really trying to simplify that administrative process. Okay, now multi-platform management. Having the ability to efficiently and centrally manage devices, keys, policy, recovery across all devices in the organization is, again, supporting that goal of keeping encryption simple. Okay, so this is multi-platform management, ensuring that all devices can be managed from the same point, regardless of platform. With this version 6.1, which we're taking a look at today, Windows and Mac are officially supported in parity. Okay, and both with that volume-based disk encryption, the native encryption, and the removable cloud storage and file share encryptions. And then the last pillar here is secure data everywhere. As I mentioned at the beginning, with the change of how people work these days, knowing that the data is safe, independent of what devices it's being accessed from or how it's accessed, means peace of mind and ultimately providing security in all of these different areas. Just a quick look at Safeguard Enterprise. Okay, we're going to take a look at how to buy Safeguard Enterprise 6.1. So this talks a little bit about the licensing options here. Okay. So hopefully you've got kind of a general idea of the Sophos data protection strategy in Safeguard Enterprise 6.1. Again, data is everywhere. Okay, it needs to be encrypted along the way, and Safeguard Enterprise lets you do that with several of the different encryption modules that we offer. So, for example, if you like to approach things in phases, we can encrypt just full disks to start, or we've got several bundling options that let us include our full disk encryption with some of the other pieces we talked about, like the cloud storage encryption, the removable media encryption, and those sorts of things. Okay, now just to further support that, data protection is a major part of Sophos' strategy, our go-to-market strategy, and we're 100% committed to encryption, okay? Regardless of how things are encrypted or what areas they're encrypted, we're looking to provide the ability to manage these both on-premise with our Safeguard Enterprise suite or in the cloud with our Sophos Cloud platform. Okay, Sophos today is the only vendor to provide encryption for BitLocker, or management of BitLocker, management of File Vault 2, proprietary disk encryption, cloud, removable media, and file share encryption, all from one centrally managed product, both for Windows and Mac. Okay. And of course, together we all want to ensure that we maintain that leadership position by continuing to deliver encryption without compromise, plus security and performance. Okay, and I'll open this up to any comments that Paul or John may have specifically around licensing and bundling options. Otherwise, we're open to taking any questions that you might have at this point.
Great, thanks, Brendan. Appreciate that. Going to take a look here and see if we have any questions. And it seems like we have one here, and it says for later. But if there are any more questions, please feel free to send them through. But we have a question here. Once you disable a user, it revokes their keys and prevents them from accessing any encrypted data they may have. Is that the case? Brendan?
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I had myself muted when I stopped sharing. Yeah, so that's definitely an option, and you can do it on a user basis too. So if you've got, for example, a shared workstation or a shared laptop that 10, 20, 50 users are using, you can selectively pick whose permissions you're revoking without restricting your other users from being able to use that hardware. Does that answer the question?
Okay, here's another question that came in, and it seems that that's an add-on. This question's an add-on to what was just asked. And does it work with on the phones and as well as the cloud?
I'm sorry, and what in addition to the cloud?
This was a part two, it looks like, of the question that was just asked, and the question is asking, will that work on phones and as well as the cloud?
So revoking their permission is specific to the Safeguard Enterprise solution. So the Sophos Mobile Encryption and the Sophos Safeguard Encryption Client both are managed over public internet, and those keys can be revoked at any point. So basically, as soon as that device comes online, once that policy change has been made, it'll synchronize, apply those policies, and you're revoking their permission, across the board.
Okay, great. And hopefully, and person who asked the question, if you could just confirm that that is the answer that you wanted, I want to make sure that I captured your question correctly. Another question just came in. Have you experienced any challenges with this installation in an ASP provided private cloud?
I'm not familiar with it specifically, but kind of the general approach for this is that the applications I mentioned for cloud storage, it will automatically recognize and apply that policy across the board. Anything that's not in the list of officially supported vendors, if they're using that same approach of a synchronized folder that's then basically a local folder that's then synchronized and shared up to the cloud storage provider, we can apply a definition or create a definition that will encrypt that folder itself. So general rule is if there's a local folder that things are saved to before they're written up there, then yeah, we can generally encrypt it.
Great, thank you. And I believe that is actually it for questions. I'll give it 10 more seconds. And again, Brendan, thank you so much for taking us through that exercise there. It was greatly appreciated. And getting some real good positive feedback from folks on what they saw today. It's definitely a matter and an issue that is on the minds of a lot of folks. And it's funny that, you know, when I first got into security, it was a regulatory compliance issue, and now it's pretty much everybody, regulatory or not, that really is making sure that this is something that's being taken care of. So it's interesting to see how that's morphed over the past years. So great, excellent. I think we're done, and thank you again so much, Brendan and John. And again, special thanks to everybody who stayed patient with us through the beginning issues that we had with the links and whatnot. And we look forward to closing out webinar series tomorrow at 11 a.m. with our iSecure engineers, and that will be a little bit more of a free-flowing, kind of off-the-cuff discussion that we'll be hosting over there. Looking forward to that one. Everybody have a great day, and you take care.